Hey guys, welcome back to The Art of Craftsmanship. My name's Dustin, and in today's video we're going to be making a Pirate Cutlass out of an old surplus Colombian military machete. Now recently Devon got me a whole box of machetes for Christmas, and we just thought it'd be fun to kind of use some of them for different projects on the channel. We also have been in conversation with Alex from Outdoors 55 on YouTube about doing some type of collaboration, so we thought this was a great opportunity. We went up to his place, we dropped off the machete, we chatted a little bit about like the idea behind what we wanted to do. And really the idea was to be able to take something fairly basic like a cheap machete and make a cool short sword out of it. We're both going to build our sword separately, and then we would do an exchange at the end. So why a Pirate Cutlass? I live in Maryland, I live on the Chesapeake Bay, and I'm a sailor, and I thought what a fun way to kind of do all the things that I love, and I love pirates, so why not do a Pirate Cutlass? It's a great short sword design for, using on board a ship, on raiding parties, and then also be able to kind of cut through close quarters when you're in the jungle working your way through. So really works well as a machete and a short sword in both things. It'd be a perfect idea. So again, like I said, this started back before the pandemic. It's been a while. It's been about 6.5 or 7 months. So it ended up being quite a long video with all the steps and quite a long process to get it done. So it took a while. We hope you enjoy it. Let's get started. So I have these 3 rivets here. They're held on with washers and they're peened over. So I'm going to grind down past the riveted head. Once I get down to the actual washer, then I should be able to just pop these right back out and take off the handle. I'm just laying out a big piece of paper and cutting it so that way we have something to work with, and I might do a few different sketches. We kind of have a general idea of what we want to do, but we also going to try a few different designs and kind of figure out what it's going to look like as we're working on the design. All right, so here are our 4 designs, and I like all 4 of them, but I'm kind of leaning toward the second and third design. So I like a combination of these two. I like kind of this guard and this handle here with the pommel on the end, and the decorative stuff, the spaces in between. But I like the blade for the third one. I think this is a little bit nicer with this kind of long, even taper, and then a point at the end. I like this kind of a little bit thinner blade. Devon behind the camera, he's leaning more toward the kind of the fourth one, which has a little bit more of that typical kind of Pirates of the Caribbean you know, Jolly Roger type look to it. And I like the dramatic look of it, but you know, for me, I like a little bit more simple design. And since I'm making it, I get to make the decision. So I think we're gonna go with a combination between 2 and 3. But we'd love to hear what you guys think, and you know, let us know in the comments down below. You know, with these 4 initial designs, which one do you think would be the best? 1, 2, 3, or 4? I have my machete laid out on the design number 3 because I like that blade. So I'm going to start laying out some of those key points where the point of the blade was and where the guard's going to go. Just kind of laying out some things that I'm going to draw on. I don't really want to cut this drawing up because it looks nice, and it's also mostly just for inspiration. So to transfer this over, I'm going to, like, again, lay out some of those key points and try to match it up somewhat, but a lot of the design work and a lot of the, you know, final shaping will be done while I'm grinding it. All right, that looks nice. I like that. It kind of has this long, nice, gentle taper out and then swoops up to the end. Stays relatively narrow, not as wide as some of the other ones. I like it. I think that'll work. I've clamped this up in the vise, and I'm going to just use my angle grinder to cut away the majority of the excess. I am going to leave a lot of extra on there because I want to grind down to my final shape, but I'm going to try to keep this cool as I'm going because I don't want to ruin the temper that's already in it. I don't know exactly what type of steel this is. It was a cheap machete, so it's got a little bit of a hardness and temper already in it, but I don't want to ruin what's there because my goal is to not have to heat treat this. You know, this is mostly going to be a decorative wall hanger type piece. It's not really going to be used. You're not going to take it out on a boat and use it to cut something or someone up. So because of that, I'm going to try to just keep it cool as I go to keep the temper that's already in it. I also don't really know what type of steel it is, so I don't have to worry about trying to heat treat it and then going through a bunch of different processes. So we'll keep it cool, and then once we get it mostly cut out, then we'll move over to the grinder and do the final shaping. Finished doing the majority of the grinding on this, so now I'm going to switch over to my grinder, and I'm going to use a 36 grit shredder belt to do that work. Now again, this is a really aggressive belt, so I have to be careful. I'll keep the blade cool as I'm going and keep that temper in it. Now we're talking. That actually lines up perfectly. If I line it up with the handle here, you can see that blade is just about exactly what we had in the drawing. I'm really happy with. But then also, if we move it over here to the handle, if I line up this top line with where my guard is, looks like we still have enough material to be able to do our full tang with the rat tail at the end and the pommel, and have enough, just enough on the end to be able to peen that over to lock it all together when we do the handle and the pommel together. As I was cutting through with the bandsaw, I cut through down here, and as soon as I hit this paint line, I realized that's where I've hit hardened steel. So everything down here was a lot harder to cut through. So I trimmed off this just to get this kind of started, and we're gonna go ahead and grind off the rest of this with the grinder. I ground and shaped the Tang to pretty much what I want, but it's a little shorter than I wanted to. I want to kind of have a little longer because I want to make sure I have enough room for the guard to wrap around, there to be a pommel on the end, and then have enough Tang to be able to peen that over the pommel to get that hold really nice in the end. So I'm going to heat that up with the torch. I want to make sure that I keep the blade nice and cool. So I'm going to wrap a wet rag around the blade, and then I'll just heat it up with the torch and then draw it out once I get this nice and hot. I'm just gonna hang on to it here. I wanna make sure that it's not warming up. If I feel it getting warm in my hand, I'll just keep that blade nice, the rag nice and wet, and we can draw that out to get about another inch, inch and a half or so. That definitely got us the inch that we were looking for. So it should be good. I'm just straightening things up, make sure it's nice and straight before we start grinding down and trimming it up a little bit on the grinder. I have my bevel distances kind of marked off. It's about 3/4 of an inch. I have my edge marked off, so I have a guideline down the center. So I'm going to start working on these bevels on both sides, and I'm going to do a bevel grind to my mark, my 3/4, and then I'm going to convex it all the way back. So it'll be a smooth transition from the edge back to the spine. I worked my way up through the 240 grip belt, and the 240, because it's so fine, sometimes you get this glue bind which will give a little bit of a jump in it. So it kind of gave a little bit of a maybe a lined look to it, but the blade looks really good. It's nice and even now all the way, a nice convex grind up to the edge. So I'm going to go ahead and use the Scotch-Brite belt, and that'll clean up all the lines, make everything nice and smooth looking. I'm going to be working on the guard next for the sword, and I'm going to use a cymbal. This is kind of a bronze alloy, and I thought it would just look really cool to have that kind of golden bronze color. So first thing I'm going to do though is actually cut out a template of that so I can test fit it around my hand and see what measurements I like for it. Two inches, okay. Let's go 2 1/4. Here, and we'll go 7/8 for a slot. That's there. I'm cutting this bottom slot a little bit longer so that way I can make a fine adjustment once I have it on the handle, but I'm just cutting both slots so we can put it over the Tang and test it out. This will come up a little bit like that. Oh yeah, I like it. Paper guard. I'm going to trace the template now onto the cymbal, and then I'll use a few different tools to cut this out and trim it down to its final shape. I want to remove the logo that's on this now before I do any of my hammering, because it's going to add more texture into it. But I want to thank our buddy Matt, who had generously kind of donated these cymbals. He is the drummer that you hear on some of the music in the background, is a buddy of ours. He's also been a supporter of the channel for a long time. So Matt, thank you so much. Really appreciate the cymbals and the support. So yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and sand these logos off, and then we'll start adding in our texture. So I was hitting a little bit too close to the edge, I think, and started to get a crack in the edge. Fortunately, we have some extra material at the bottom, so I'm gonna go ahead and trim this off, and then we'll just shift our pattern down just a little bit. I'm really happy with the way this is turning out. I love the surface look, this texture buildup. I was kind of going for that, you know, the hand of the maker built into it, so the hammer marks and all into it, but also giving it some character and a little bit of age, and I think it's doing that really nicely. I'm going to use my digital calipers now to measure and mark off the width of the tang as well as the thickness. I want to make sure that I drill and cut out the slot at exactly the right size. That way when I put everything together, it fits really nice and tight. I'm going to use the cutoff disc on my Dremel to open up the slots, and I might use some of these other little tools to open up a little bit more before I switch over to hand filing to finish them off. One thing I need to make sure of is that my tang is not thicker at the bottom, which I think it is right now. So I'm going to need to thin this up a little bit on the grinder first. Now I just have to work on the edges around those just a smidge on the slot, so that way this will seat down all the way onto the guard. A little bit closer, a little bit better, a little more. My transition between my tang and my blade are just not exactly flat. I think this one's up a little bit. So I'm just gonna use the flat file, come in here and bring these shoulders down just a little bit, and that should work. All right, that is looking really nice, really tight inside there. Remember, I'm going to be bringing the end of the guard up on this end some, and then out here it's going to come out and down. So I'll have to really make sure I keep this nice and straight so that way it fits nice and tight, and I'll make those few adjustments to that once I start shaping the guard. All right, right on, perfect. You can see I switched back over to peening from the inside. Now I want it to curve a little bit this way as well. And also just wrapping it around the pipe. It was working, but it's so slow, and putting that stress on it, I just feel like I'd rather squeeze and move the metal than just try to bend the metal at this point. We'll see. I think this is going to work better. Should be just about right. Oh yeah, that looks really good. And just with just a little bit of pressure, we get a really nice fit up at the top. And I just made a few adjustments. I rounded the top here a little more, and I rounded the bottom a little more, which actually flattened out the front and brought this down some. I think I'm really happy with that. Looks really nice. I'm looking for some wood now to make the handle. I think I'm going to use a piece of black walnut spaced out with some brass pieces, which I think will look really nice. I just have to find the right piece of black walnut. That's eBay. Oh, sword handle. I have black walnut up here. There is a piece of black walnut. Here we go. We have a couple pieces of black walnut here. This one has a really nice figure to where there was a tree limb or something in it, so we'll go ahead and use this piece right here. Now my handle is going to be 4 1/4 inches long. I'm going to be adding 3 pieces of 1/16 inch brass into it, so it'll go a little bit further, but I'm going to go ahead and cut it now at 4 1/4, so that way I'll have plenty of material on both sides to trim down to fit really nicely into the handle. Oh, that's that. That's that. This is tracking. Okay. Let's see. Adjust this back. Put this on. So using that bandsaw with the smaller blade kerf, it only took off about a total of a 1/16 of an inch. So that's pretty nice. I'll go ahead and take them over to the belt sander and clean them up and get them nice and flat. Now, before I glue all this up, I want to cut out the slots for the tang and the brass. I'm not going to do it in the wood, I'm going to drill those later, but I don't want to have to be drilling through the brass as well as the wood and trying to cut out that slot inside. So I'm going to cut these out beforehand, make sure they're a little bit wider than I'll need, so that way later I can drill them out and everything will work really well. I have all the pieces ready to go, so I'm going to clean everything first, and then I'm going to mix up the epoxy and glue everything together. Go ahead and clamp this up now. I'm actually going to use a clamp on both sides, make sure I have good pressure. And I'm going to leave it on this scrap piece of paper. And if I need to, I can grind it off later. All right, this is nice and straight now. I'm going to go ahead and set this aside to dry. I don't need to wait for this to dry to work on the next step, because we have the next thing we can work on, which is cutting out and starting to shape the pommel. I have this bolt that I threw into the forge and hammered a while back, just messing around, but it's already in the basic shape that I want. So I'm going to trim it off to where it's about 7/8 of an inch here, and then I'll trim it off here right below this ridge. It should give me plenty of material to taper up and then round over the top to be able to make a pommel that looks like this design. How cool is that? I am super, super pleased with this. It's amazing what you can do with just a chunk of steel and a grinder. It's just a funny little shape, but it's super satisfying to grind this down and get it the way I want it. So I'm excited. Now I need to anneal this, because the next thing is drilling holes through it, and I'm pretty sure it's really hard and it's going to kill some of my drill bits. So we're going to get it in the forge, get it nice and hot, and we'll let it cool down really slow. I'm letting this get nice and bright red in the forge. And I'm gonna turn down my heat really low, just so it's a little bit of a flame on it. And I'll let that on there for maybe 5 or 10 minutes, and then I'll just turn it off completely, shut the doors, and let that whole piece cool down as slow as possible in the forge to anneal. All right, guys, we're back in the shop. It's been a couple days, and the glue is dried up on the handle, so this is ready to be shaped. And also, the pommel has been annealed and softened, so I'm ready to drill out the slot for that. So I'm gonna go ahead and set this up in my drill press vise and drill out our holes and see if I can get that slot to go through here to fit on the end of the tang. Perfect. All right, that's looking really nice. Nice and close there. And here on the back, that looks like it's pretty centered as well, maybe just a smidge off to one side, but I'll go ahead and clean out that middle area between the two with a Dremel. And then I'm actually gonna taper either side as well here so it sits really nice and tight down onto the tang. I'm transferring my lines from the bottom of the tang and the top of the tang and then tapering them. So this shows you where exactly my tang will be through the handle so I know how to drill. And I'm going to clamp this in my drill press vise at an angle so I can drill straight down through, and I'll drill a whole bunch of holes, and hopefully we'll get that nice clean channel all the way through that piece of wood. All right, well, I'm almost through. I was drilling along, and as you can see, the glue bond came apart. Now, I'm not actually too that upset about it because I want to actually go back and add in some holes on either side of the metal. The handle is going to be about the full width of this. I'm going to drill 2 holes on either side. I'm going to drill them all the way down through, so that way I'll create a stronger bond with glue going all the way through the metal. But I'm going to take advantage of the situation now and actually have these separate, and I'll keep drilling these out so we can test fit it onto the tang. As you guys can see, I'm using some toothpicks to just add a little bit more strength through those dowels that are going to be there, through those epoxy dowels. This just goes to show you guys, sometimes we all need a teaching moment. I should have known from the beginning that I really need something stronger than just the glue bonding this metal together. So, you know, necessity is the mother of invention. It came apart, so this gave me the opportunity to put in a stronger glue up. It should work much better. It's the next day, guys, and I've let this cure overnight, so it fits really nicely. Now I did go in and drill out some of the glue that was inside, and it fits well in the Tang. So our next step is actually going back to the pommel, drilling this out a little bit more and fitting it onto the Tang. So we need to shape the Tang just a little bit, and then we'll clean this up and get it all ready to go on, fit up nicely all the way up against the guard. That fits there. I got a little step which should fit inside that slot well. And let's check the pommel. All right, that looks really nice. I'll have to shape the handle next, do all sorts of little finicky kind of touch-ups to get everything to fit really well. Then we'll be able to attach everything together. That is sweet. That's so nice. And it looks like we have, yeah, our balance point is like just forward of the guard, which is really nice, a little bit heavy on the sword side for a chopping sword. You know, that's what you want. That's really cool. Man, I'm super excited. That's gonna be awesome. I'll grind this all down so it all matches up really nicely. So the bottom of the guard lines up perfectly with the sides of the handles and the pommel. Should be really nice. My next part is I'm gonna cut off most of this Tang. So I just have about maybe 1/8 of an inch or 3/16 sticking out that I can peen over. And then I'm gonna make a few notches in the Tang so that way when I do epoxy everything together, it'll give the epoxy some more surface area and some more notches to really glue up and bond to inside that handle so it's nice and tight on the whole sword. I'm mixing up my 2-part epoxy now so I can glue the guard and the handle and the pommel all together onto the Tang. Now this is a 2-ton epoxy and it has a 30-minute work time, so it'll give me plenty of time to peen the end of the Tang over to lock everything together really nicely. All right guys, the glue up went really well. Everything's nice and solid, so now we're gonna go ahead and start all the finishing work. All right, I sanded up to 400 grit through the handle, about 220 on the guard, and then I went up to 600 on the pommel. Now I need to just finish up the area around the front of the sword. So we'll go ahead and take the tape off and check it out. Made it to our final part of this whole project, which is oiling the handle. Always a really nice way to end. See the beauty of the wood come out. Let's go ahead and use some boiled linseed oil and oil this up. All right, guys, well, it's finished. I'm super happy with the way this turned out. I love it. I've taken that standard machete and turned it into something that still works just like a machete, but now is way cooler to look at and way cooler to hold. What I was really going for was to make sure this looked really clean, a really nice shape, as well as a really clean fit up throughout the guard, the handle, and the pommel, which I think I got and I'm really pleased with. If you want to see me use this, you want to see me chop up some stuff and put it to the test, we're going to be doing that. We're going to be making a video with Outdoors 55 when he's finished his sword build. So go over to his channel, check him out, subscribe if you haven't already, and encourage him to finish up his sword, get back on the horse, start making some more videos, and give us some content that we love. Finish this collaboration. That way we can get together and we can film using it and exchanging it. We're super excited. I'm really happy to be able to make this and give this to Alex, and I'm really excited to see what he's done for our channel as well. So thank you guys all so much for watching. If you haven't already, please subscribe. We're really trying to get to that 100,000 mark before the end of the year, and we can get there with your guys' help. Also, like this video. If you want to follow along behind the scenes, definitely you can follow us on Instagram at The Art of Craftsmanship. And if you're looking for a way to support the channel even more, to be able to help us put out more content and really get, kind of get back into this swing of things, you can go over to Patreon and check us out there. Thank you guys so much for watching. It's been a fun one. It's been a long time coming. We'll see you in the next video.